Beef stroganoff is a much beloved classic that combines two very meaty ingredients, and that is mushrooms and beef, and pairs it with the tanginess of sour cream. Here's the problem. A lot of people that are lactose intolerant can't enjoy this dish. So I've been working on my own version for people that cannot have lactose. Beef stroganoff is an all-time classic comforting meal. You can pair it with white egg noodles, you can have it with rice, and if you're doing the keto thing, you can have it with steamed chopped vegetables. It's always easier to get started with the major prep before you start the cooking. So let's start by getting this onion going. So the shape of the onions is really up to you, but what I did was I did the rainbow cut and then I cut it in half. So you're gonna have a nice little texture to match with the mushrooms. Now, in my prior beef stew video, I went off on people that don't like mushrooms, and a close relative reached out to me, and I'm here to apologize for hurting their feelings. But guess what? This dish is loaded with mushrooms, unless of course you don't want to put it in there. You have a decision to make. You want to cut it like this into chunks to go with the beef, or what you want to do is slice it. Again, your preference. Now I'm going to go with slices here because that's the way my family,
excluding that close relative,
likes them. Okay, now to approximate the sour and tanginess of the sour cream, what I'm using is coconut milk, but coconut milk has a little bit of natural slight sweetness. So what we want to do is add some additional ingredients to help replicate the sour cream. And what we're going to use is a combination of Dijon mustard, white vinegar, and believe it or not, pickle slices. What I'm using here is hamburger pickle chips. You're going to basically just chop and mince them up. Now, it's not going to actually taste like pickles, and it's going to have the texture of softened onions. So that's what it's going to feel like in the stroganoff, but it will add a nice tang that helps with the replacing of sour cream. Now let's talk beef. I am using here some top sirloin. You can use other cuts, whatever you like. If you're using a slightly tougher cut of meat, like say a beef chuck, what you want to do is cook it over low heat, and over a longer period of time, it will get soft and delicious. Point being, just use the cut of beef that you prefer. Mocha always gets a share. Okay, we're gonna get a pot of salted water boiling. Alright, my water is boiling and I'm gonna add my egg noodles. Alright, I got my pot hot and I'm gonna add my oil. What we wanna do is sear the chunks of beef in the pot as our first step. One of the biggest myths in cooking is when you're searing the meat, the idea is that you're locking in the juices, but that's not really true. This is not like some impenetrable shield that you're creating. The reason we're searing it is because it's going to add additional flavor compounds and make your food taste better. On to the next stage with the mushrooms and the onions. So I'm going to come back with some additional oil. Got my onions. Now we're going to get these soft before we proceed to the mushrooms. The mushrooms have gotten nice and soft. Before we add the beef, we're going to deglaze the pan. You want to take your spoon and just scrape the bottom of the pan and help get some of those tasty solids that were stuck on there. We are now going to add the beef and the juices that are drained onto the plate, and we want to get this to a simmer. We don't want it boiling. Worcester, well, you know what I want. Now we're ready to add our tangy and souring agents. What I got here is my Dijon mustard, my minced pickle chips, and finally I have here my white vinegar. Oh. Now we're gonna let this slowly simmer, and also what you want to do is pay attention. You'll know it's done when the beef is nice and tender, but once it gets close to done, I want you to figure out if you want to reduce the gravy some more or if you're happy with the way it is. Ooh, hot. Okay, we are working with a lot of earth tones in our food, and so add a nice green, herby, fresh flavor. Okay, this has mercifully finished cooking, and I've let it cool for a little bit. Now I got my egg noodles, and I am going to now serve and plate this warm, hearty meal. You want to add a little bit of freshness with some chopped parsley or your favorite herbs. You got the wonderfully beefy, tangy flavors of a beef stroganoff, and you have zero dairy in here. This is a wonderful dish that you can have on a nice cold night.